What do the Gilmore Girls, abusive relationships, and empowering women have to do with each other? Find out in this special bonus Changemakers episode of Give a Fuck, presented by Spark Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Sarah Woodard. Among other things, I am a certified shamanic practitioner, Reiki master teacher, activist, educator, speaker, and award-winning children's author. I am also a fierce defender of the underdog, which for me means wildlife, companion and work/farmed animals, Mother Nature, and Gaia herself. I care deeply about my fellow human animals and believe that when we learn to live in harmony with nature, we also learn to live in harmony with ourselves and each other. I am fearless about doing my own inner work and growth, and am passionate about helping create a world where all beings are respected and honored. I have a deep connection to Gaia and feel particularly connected in the presence of the beautiful Colorado Front Range. When I'm not busy working to present information about living in harmony with Mother Nature, I share my time with 3 wonderful cats, enjoy bird watching, and experiencing all the outdoors has to offer. My life journey to this point has been filled with twists, turns, and changes, as I'm sure yours has too. For me, the constants from birth to now are a strong connection to Gaia, a deep-seated need to serve and help create a more compassionate and healthy world, and a love of both learning and sharing my knowledge. Those lifelong constants are what brought me to this point. All of the knowledge I've acquired in the process of learning to live my life in harmony, as well as new information I come across, are the inspiration for and knowledge bombs presented in this podcast. I help soul-searching sensitive women nurture their sense of interconnectedness, feel confident in their purpose, and become compassionate contributors to positive change in their worlds. Unlike other spiritual life coaches who often rely on uncomfortable religious terminology or metaphysical techniques, I use connection with nature to guide you through a process of spiritual awakening and inner discovery so that you can nourish and spread your light to your community and beyond. As I mentioned, this is a special bonus Changemakers episode. This is going to be an occasional series where I will highlight the ways that everyday women, people just like you, have been a force for positive change. And these are going to be interspersed in between the usual bi-weekly episodes. I really hope you enjoy them. As a quick reminder, the spelling of give a fuck is F*K. As a quick life update, I think there's going to be a move out of state in my not terribly distant future, probably in the next year or so. So I'll keep you updated on that. But in the meantime, I want to introduce you to our amazing guest. She is my soul sister, my amazing editor for my children's books, an all-around amazing person, Abby Rosmarin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll leave space for you to also ask me a question, because we like to do that on this show when we have guests.
That sounds great. So first and foremost, hi, everybody. My name is Abby, as you have just heard. I am a writer. It feels weird to say internet personality, but that's what my agent calls it, and that's what I'm going to go with. I'm an internet personality. Once upon a time, you might have known me as not Jennifer Garner, because apparently I am a dead ringer for her, but now I just go by my full name, Abby Rosmarin. My books, I have 6 out. They're all available on Amazon. And when I'm not doing those 2 things, I am in grad school. I'm getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I am currently on the year of dating myself. Now.
Yeah, so she's not busy at all, not at all. And still somehow has time to be an amazing friend.
Oh, thank you.
So this is the point where we do the answer a question section. So what question do you have for me, Abby?
Well, it sounds good. Now, maybe this is because I am a graduate student, but my question for you is, if you could wake up tomorrow and not only have this degree, but all the knowledge that is acquired with that degree of any level, so anything from associates to PhD, what would that degree be, and what would that degree topic be on?
It sounds very materialistic, I guess, but if I had to only pick one, I think I would want maybe like an associate's or a bachelor's in marketing, because I just feel like that's something I just always struggle with and I don't understand. And I'm such an introvert that like coming out of my shell to do marketing is already really hard. And I feel like if I knew stuff more than I know, it might be a little easier. But if I could pick two, I would want that. And then like a PhD or something in like theology or like religious studies or something along those lines, because that to me is like all of those different ways of, to me, religions are just perspectives on the world, right? Metaphysical practices are just perspectives on the world. And to me, all of them have like a core truth. And I feel like I've kind of cracked the code on that, which is part of what I teach people in my course and everything. But more knowledge is always exciting for me. It's always fun. And so I think that would be a cool thing to do. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing answer.
Thank you. I'm mostly going to let Abby tell her story, but as a little bit of a connection to my little teaser about the Gilmore Girls and this particular effort of change making, because Abby's quite the change maker anyways, but this particular story is fairly centered around this guy that she dated who, at least at one point, was also a quote unquote internet personality. And as a result, had some opportunities to do things like Gilmore Girls, whatever they were called. Abby can give you all the details of that, but take it away, girlfriend. Tell us this awesomeness that you have done with this, that stemmed from this really shit situation.
Oh my goodness. So I guess, yeah, in some ways we will go to the very beginning where once upon a time, me and this internet personality, if you will, the funniest thing is that if we were filming this even a week ago, I would have been afraid to say anything. But these days, I'm in a much different attitude. So once upon a time, me and the Vibe with Kai, government name Keenan, though, were mutuals on TikTok. And mutuals just means that we followed each other. And he immediately slid into my DMs and was telling me how amazing I am and how, oh my God, you need to be on my podcast. And basically struck up a friendship that way. And friendship very quickly turned into him letting it slip that, he really thinks I'm cute. And oh my God, he has such a crush on me and da. And unfortunately, I really bought into this good guy cosplay because he really did play himself off as this sweet, dopey dude. Part of his internet persona was that he was a Gilmore Girls fan and he makes Gilmore Girls content. And, like many abusive relationships, it starts off like a fairy tale. I have found my Prince Charming. How did I find this perfect person for me? And I had that for a couple of months. Now, don't get me wrong. I had this weird rumbling in my gut that was telling me something was off. But as I saw it, I was like, no. You've had a lot of relationship trauma. You've had a lot of childhood trauma. It's your trauma talking. Keep that phrase in mind for later on in the story. And unfortunately, some of the cracks in the facade started to show around the 3 or 4 month mark. But as people who've been in abusive relationships also know, they don't show everything all at once. Little parts start to sneak out, and it sneaks out a little bit more, and it sneaks out a little bit more. And slowly but surely, I was becoming that frog in the boiling pot of water where I didn't realize that the water temperature was getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And extremely long story short, I was officially pushed past my limit. I finally left that relationship. And unfortunately, that's not where the story ends, because I left that relationship. And that's when I started finding out about all of the cheating. That's when I started finding out about all of the lying, and particularly lying about a story that, when I learned the truth, I was past rage at that point. And I think when I really think about it, I get that way again, where he had told me this heart-wrenching story about this woman that he was in a relationship with, and they had a huge fight, and he stormed out of her apartment. And then later that night, he gets a call from her best friend saying that she had passed from suicide. And he invoked her name and everything, literally everything in that relationship. And I would learn that, no, they were never in a relationship. There's some additional details that I have not been making public, just, out of respect for everyone, the innocent people involved. But knowing those details and knowing that he was playing off this story the way that he was just made it extra disgusting. And I found myself in this place where I was trying to navigate speaking my truth with somebody else who had a much larger platform than me, doing whatever it took to try to shut me up and shut me down. And throughout all of this, I was also having this kind of awakening moment because, as Sarah can tell you, it's been one bad relationship after another, after another, after another. And
I can definitely attest to that. And I don't fault Abby so much as the only way I can fault Abby is that she has a good heart and she sees the best in people and wants this fairy tale to be the truth of people. And really, don't we all want that? Like, so it's really, I can't fault Abby other than that she's human and she needs to grow and learn like we all do, which is part of why she's now doing this year of dating herself and she's a change maker on the show. Anyways, go.
Exactly. Which, and one of the things that I was doing was like, not to blame the victim, because at the end of the day, abusive relationships are because of abusive people, the end.
Absolutely.
But what was it about me that was leaving these vulnerabilities open for them to like essentially hear the siren call and,
exactly.
come towards me and, what
was attracting them to
exactly.
You?
And what can I reassess in order to break this habit? And the big thing I realized was I hadn't been single for any substantive amount of time since I was 19, and multiple times I would swear off dating, but then I'd meet a guy and I'd be like, oh, he's worth breaking that vow for, whatever.
I was there for all of that too, folks.
Oh yeah. And I realized the big part there was I would swear off dating, but it was always for these external reasons. It was always a reaction against my pain and kind of was hoping that, some new love would come in and then that would be my stand-in for the pain. Like it would replace my pain. And that is when I realized I need to do more than just swear off dating. And in fact, maybe what I need to do is be in the dating world, but not for those other people. I need to take all of this energy that I've been pouring into men, destroying myself to prop up a guy, and I need to reinvest it in myself. I need to start.
Sister.
Right. And, and not only prop up those guys, but those guys felt entitled to have us destroy ourselves so they can be propped up. But
misogyny is a thing.
Oh, it very much is. And a lot of people don't understand it operates on different levels. Like just because you're not, with your head out of your car screaming, you effing bitch, does not mean that you're not dealing with misogyny,
Correct. And women can be misogynist too, FYI.
Very much so. Internalized misogyny is a thing. The sign of a good oppressive system is when the oppressed do the work of the oppressors. Mm-hmm. People will try to invalidate misogyny by saying, well, women do it too. And it's like, well, no. That's actually a feature of the oppressive system.
Exactly. That's actually part of the problem. Anyways, we digress.
We'll bring it on back. And I realized that I needed to do this kind of year of dating myself. And the lead up to it was kind of my favorite part because as I'm having this realization, I don't know what exactly it's going to look like. I don't have, I'm going to do a year of dating myself yet. But one of my friends from TikTok, TikTok might have been horrible about the romance world, but I've met some amazing friends there. And she, in December, is like, hey, me and another TikToker, we're going to go to Zion National Park. We're going to Bryce Canyon. I know you're a grad student. I know you don't have a lot of money, but do you think you could join us? And I was like, yeah, literally 2 weeks to go. I buy my ticket. I scramble pack. And while I am there, it's just, the timing was just too perfect. It is New Year's Eve. We are driving back from our day in Zion National Park. I'm just on my phone and I see a promotional email from my favorite band, Guster, and they are playing in my area in April. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'm getting some tickets. But the show's nearly sold out. There's just one seat here, one seat here, one seat there. So effectively sold out unless you want to buy a solo seat. And that's when it clicks for me. I've never been to a concert by myself. What the hell have I even done by myself? I've always had a partner with me. And specifically a romantic partner. that is when the year of dating myself actually took shape. And I really, not only did I buy myself that solo ticket, but here we are driving back to our Airbnb, and I am on my notes app now. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do for the year of dating myself? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to take myself out? Are there classes that I want to take that's, outside of my graduate classes?
Because she has time for that, really.
Exactly. Which, fittingly might be the reason why that of all the categories has been the one that's gotten the least checked off. It's a little tough to do additional classes when you're too busy learning your, master's stuff, but
small hard. Yeah. Small hard.
Just a little bit lowercase h hard.
Yeah.
and then, and that is when it started taking shape. And I think my favorite part of this year of dating myself is that when I started, I had no idea where it was going to go. I had no idea what shape it was going to take. I had some ideas and, was kind of like, okay, well, we'll just see where this goes. But especially now that we're in August, I'm 2/3 of the way through this year of dating myself, and I am watching the change happen. I'm watching the growth happen. I'm watching me step into a comfort zone that I didn't even have even in February or March of this year. And it's, it's been phenomenal. And I am excited to also say that I have been writing about it as much in real time as possible. My agent absolutely loves the idea. And I actually just sent her my revamped proposal for it. And with any hopes, fingers are crossed, before even the year of dating myself is out, I might have myself a book deal on my hands so people can read about it. Yeah,
that would be phenomenal. So a couple things I want to point out, and then I have some questions too. So first of all, I've known Abby for almost 10 years, I think, at this point.
I think we're closing in on a decade.
Yeah, it's crazy amounts of time. And she's a very different person today from the person she was when I met her. I have loved and adored her through all of her life changes. She has loved and adored me through all of mine, including moving 2,000 miles across the country. She was one of the key people that I would call and be like, I'm getting tunnel vision on the road. Please distract me. But this year of her being alone, I have never seen, and I think this might be my first time even telling you this, Abby, so please take this in with your full heart.
Okay.
I have never seen her this confident and this sure of herself, and it's really amazing. But that's not the really cool part. You haven't even hit on the change makers part. I mean, you kind of have, right? You're changing your own inner life, and that work is vital and important, and I'm not trying to minimize that in any way, shape, or form. But what I think is the most cool in this particular situation is how that newfound confidence and that newfound sense of justice, and that you're allowed to speak up for justice. You don't just have to sit home and go, this is unjust and I don't like it. You can be out there strong and passionate and kick ass and be like, yo, this is unjust. It's gotta stop. And how that has led to really cool things for you. And I think you know what I'm talking about. It's going to bring you out to my area around my birthday. Yay! Yes. So tell that part of the story.
All right. So as I was kind of mentioning before, there was this scariness about navigating around talking about what I had gone through when I had had a fairly public relationship with somebody who has a bigger platform than me and also is clearly more adept in things like, marketing and manipulation and spin doctoring. And I found myself in a place where I was like, I'm not going to be afraid. I am not going to be afraid of speaking my truth. And so as I've been doing this year of dating myself, I've also just been making content about my experience. And I was, quick not to name names. Anyone who knew about my relationship would clearly put two and two together, but just talking about, hey, this is what happened. This is what happened. And then extremely long story short, he tried to intimidate one of my closest friends from TikTok. It didn't work out for him. And
she's also a badass woman and would not take this shit.
Oh, for real. Big time. And, very, very long story short, we decided, you know what? We have receipts and we're going to bring those receipts out and be like, this is a man who has a history of being abusive. And this is something that I would slowly but surely learn in the background. And, I would take in that information and feel validated. But I would also be like, but I also don't know what to do with this information because he has this history. I am not the first woman he was abusive to. I'm definitely not going to be the last woman he was abusive to. But then we got to this place of, all right, you know what? We're going to put these receipts out. And that even included a podcast where he talked about that girlfriend, named her by name and everything. So there's public record of him making this lie. And just before we're going to bring out this extra bit of evidence, we had a few people reach out to my TikTok best friend, who, and we learned some extra concerning stuff about him and pursuing girls who are not of legal age, if you're catching my drift. And
we're going to leave that there because we want to protect younger, innocent humans here.
Very much so.
Yes.
So we released that out, and the way that it was able to kind of catch on was just so huge and so beautiful. And in this time, I had people bring to my attention that this man was supposed to be part of a conference for women's empowerment, specifically women who have been through big life changes. And I remembered how my skin crawled hearing about that. I'm like, that's inviting the wolf into the sheep's den. Oh my God, this is the worst place in the world for somebody like him to be. And long story short, he would get ahead of it and email the person who was in charge of it. It was like, hey, you know what, there's this controversy going on and it's all false, but I don't want you guys to get dragged in. So I'm going to just pull myself from it. And the woman had no idea what was going on. But she was like, okay, I'm going to research into this. So she looks into me and my videos. And first and foremost, she's taken in by what I've gone through because she can relate to a lot of what I've gone through.
I mean, honestly, what woman can't, which is kind of sad, but.
Yep. And, you know, in some ways that would be a place where I would feel both validation and heartbreak for those women, because I would state a story and be like, oh my God, I was not the only one. Fuck, I'm not the only one. That sucks.
Exactly. Yep.
But the big positive thing was she saw my year of dating myself and she was like, oh my God, we're like the same person basically, because after her divorce, she did a period of dating herself so she could, you know, find herself again. And so she reaches out to me and she's like, hey, you know, I've heard of everything going on. Are you free to talk on the phone? And I'm immediately a little on edge because I was like, because at this point, you know, there's been a lot happening. There are some people who are like, most people are really in support, but I definitely have some people that are part of his little cabal and they're, you know, trying to infiltrate. They're trying to do their thing. And so I'm just like, all right, well, maybe she's going to yell at me because she just lost one of her speakers. But instead, when she called me up, we're talking about the dating ourselves. She's talking about how the Vibe with Kai got onto the conference even in the first place. And she tells me about how, like, yeah, you know, he emailed me and told me that he's pulling himself from it. And then they asked,
which is maybe the only upright thing he has done.
Oh, yeah. And we all know, like, you know, for legal reasons, this is just speculation. Oh, I roll there. But my speculation is really just him trying to get ahead of it. So he would not have to say that he got fired. He could just say, you know, oh, no, I had to pull myself from it. Because I don't, you know, speculation. This is my opinion. I don't think there's a single altruistic bone in his body. But the woman asks, she's like, hey, would you be interested in talking about the year of dating yourself at this conference in October? And I immediately was like, yes, I'm here. I'm here for this.
And then, as universal luck would have it, the conference happens to be in Denver. And I'll get to see Abby for the first time since I moved out here. Yay!
I know, and I'm so excited for it. And I remember when we were figuring out the logistics, one of the things I said was like, "Oh, this is so amazing because, you know, like one of my best friends moved out to Denver, and I haven't been able to see her, and
because her life's not at all busy. Remember,
right?" And I'm like, that would be, and I can even just stay a couple of extra days. And so, you know, we're still hammering out the details, but she was like, "Yeah, of course." Yeah, she's like, if you want to stay a few extra days, we just, figure out the plane, your flights accordingly. And I was like, perfect. And I'm over here being like, that does mean I might miss one or two classes, but you know what? This is okay. If I'm only missing like one or two, whatever. So I'm just so excited about that. Fingers are crossed we'll be able to, if not celebrate your birthday, celebrate your birthday early. Maybe go to,
yeah. It'll be like, the week of birthday. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the thing that obviously I'm very excited to see Abby. Of course. That goes without saying. But the thing that I think is super cool about it is it's kind of like reaffirming how the universe works. Like I said, like I feel like I've kind of mastered sort of those innate truths and I present those in my class, but this is one of those pieces, right? Abby has taken responsibility for her life. She has gone out there and put herself on the line to stand up for not just herself, but for other women. And she is being rewarded with this opportunity to hang out with me. Which wouldn't matter if she didn't love me, but since she does, it matters.
It very much matters. And it reminds me of one of the very first people that used to be in Keenan's circle who had reached out to me. She's a psychic medium and now she's one of my closest friends. But I remember when I was telling her about the year of dating myself and she said, if you can stay on this, if you can give yourself that time to be single, you are going to get rewarded.
Mm-hmm. That's how it works, though. Like, that's how it works. You put good out, good comes back. You put crap out, eventually that's going to catch up to you, too. Look what's happening to Keenan, right?
Exactly.
Like, on the surface, things seemed fine until they weren't, right? That is one of the ways in which the universe works. Some people will call it the law of this, that, or the other thing. I don't care about those. Those are just boxes. And if you need that language to help you understand it, fine. But the basic concept is, this is how this works. Call it karma if you want, but this is how this works. And I just think it's just been amazing to kind of see that happen in your life. Like, I've been single most of the time that Abby and I have known each other, with the exception of maybe the total of a year.
I think so, like combining a few of the
a couple of the different short-lived relationships. Yeah. Mostly I've been single the whole time, and I know how good it's been for me. And I am just now coming back to, maybe I'm ready to date again. Yeah, maybe I could do that. Let me do some more learning about how to do this in a way so I don't wind up with people like Keenan, like male or female. Like, let me just make sure I know how to consciously assess people and not get caught up in that everything's perfect honeymoon phase, which I've learned is called limerence. So there you go. Yeah.
Learned a term.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, it has a name. Cool. So I've had to do a lot of reflecting and growth on that, which for me is, I think, like the final stage of decade of dating myself, if you will. But we all have to kind of do that process and do it at our own speed and whatever it looks like. For Abby, it's been a lot of traveling. That would never be my time of dating myself. That's not me. I'm like, travel to me, please, and we'll hang out in my space, right? Come to my bubble. I don't want to leave my bubble. But Abby's very adventurous. For you, if you need this time, whatever length of time works, of dating yourself, figure out what it looks like for you. Get out your notes app like Abby did and write down all the things. You know?
Exactly. And, I remember there was somebody asking me like, well, what is my first step? And the first step in some ways is acknowledging that you're kind of getting to know you like you are dating anybody. You are getting to know them, and it is kind of exciting in the unknown. Another thing is like making sure that it is authentic to you. If, say, for instance, I'm an avid hiker, and if I was dating somebody who was an avid gamer, it would be kind of like, okay, this is not gonna...
That doesn't dive super good, yeah.
Exactly. So it's also okay to be like, all right, here, what do I want to do? Well, maybe I should go on like this epic hike and learn more about myself. Fuck, I'm not a hiker at all. And it's not on the list.
Don't do that. Yeah, exactly. Don't put that on the list. So what advice, like, that's really good advice right there. But also, like, if somebody is maybe not at that point where they're ready to do this whole dating themselves things, maybe they're still trapped in this horrible relationship, whatever level of abuse or type of abuse it looks like. None of them are acceptable. None of them are okay. We all need to feel strong enough to leave them. So what advice would you give for somebody who's maybe in that position?
Oh, so I think the biggest is being able to start compiling the resources, if you will. And that is going to be internal resources and external resources, whether, it is things like being able to find that ability to find your inner strength and understand that your inner worth. But it also can mean knowing who you can reach out to, whether it is, I'm in an unsafe situation and I can reach out to this person to help me get out of this situation, or this person might be able to find an apartment for me so I can move out, or even just, I found a therapist and I'm going to be able to sit with this person and they're going to help me get to a place where, and I fully recognize that sometimes when you're knee deep in abusive relationships, you're not ready to admit that it's abusive. I will be the first to admit, I think I was 3 weeks out of leaving. I literally left because he yelled at me for crying for too long for the very last time. And it still took about 2
weeks for all of this too.
Oh,
and by that point, my Scorpio, which most of my listeners know, it's not just my sun sign. I have 3 planets in Scorpio, and my Scorpio was like, Abby, leave this relationship. I was full on like Scorpio monster.
Oh yeah. I test the patience of basically everybody in my inner circle because it was
love you anyway.
Exactly. And it was something that I had to get to on my own, and I'm going to trust that the timing was what it was supposed to be for whatever reason that might have been. But again, it still took weeks for me to go, oh, hey, it's actually abusive if your partner just blows up at you because you asked them a simple question or you cried for too long and that annoys him. So he yelled at you for it.
Right. And and some people, it takes years to accept that. All of that timing is okay because it does have to happen in whatever timing you're okay with.
Exactly. And
regardless of what your friends who are all in Scorpio mode may be telling you.
And I think I have mentioned I am always in awe. I've noticed there are 2 signs that I have in my life. It is Scorpio and Capricorn. And I feel like that's really saying something that kind of energy is the energy I put into my life.
And my favorite people are generally Virgos because we understand each other. I was actually just talking to another Virgo friend yesterday about this, how we have these deep emotional lives. And although Scorpios get a little bit more hellfire about our responses to our own emotional lives, whereas Virgos are more likely to go, okay, let me, take a step back and think before I speak. We still understand that there's this deep, well of stuff happening below whatever that surface response is. So anyway, quick intro to astrology there.
Right. And the beautiful thing is that we kind of are then able to feed off of each other and look, because I definitely am there have been so many times that I've even said straight up to Sarah, it's just I need to borrow your Scorfire. Wow. Your Scorpio hellfire.
No, I think we can call it Scorfire now. I think that's
I like
totally
the Scorfire. Yes. I'm here for
totally
this.
A word now. Yes. Well, and there's literally been times when I've said to Abby, I'm going to be pissed about this for you. I know you're not ready to be, but you should be. So I'm going to be pissed about this for you until you're ready to be pissed.
Right. And in some ways that, ties into potentially a little bit of the other advice. If you are in a bad situation, whether it is just, on one side, maybe emotional neglect, this person is just checked out, or this is legitimately a dangerous situation, is knowing that who do you have out there who can feel the feelings for you, where at that moment, maybe you do not feel safe to feel them. And that can be very beautiful and very validating when man, I should really be angry about this. And you have at least 1 or 2 friends who are like, you know what, I'm going to be angry for you. You don't even need to be angry now. You can be angry when you're in a safer situation.
Sure. I can hold that for you for now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I also would like to throw in on the resources piece of advice. For some women, that may also look like you need to start squirreling away some money that your partner doesn't know anything about. And if you have kids, maybe it needs to be a little more money because obviously whatever, but start squirreling that away so that when you do leave, whether it's you go to a shelter and they help you find housing, or you have a friend who can help you, whatever, you're not going, well, that's great. I'm glad this apartment exists, but I don't have money for a down payment or whatever. So start squirreling that squirreling that away in an account that your partner doesn't know about.
Yes.
Yes.
And, being able to see what is out there. Like, when it comes to, there are the shelters out there, and usually they will have caseworkers who can then say, hey, these are the subsidized housings we can get you into.
Right.
It's a scary situation, especially if you are in those dangerous situations. And the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when you're leaving.
Yep.
So, and this is my...
And here's another tip, not to interrupt you, but here's another tip. Having gone through that, particularly one time when I was literally afraid of what's going to happen if this guy knows I leave, do not be afraid to call local law enforcement and have them escort you to get your stuff.
Yes.
Yes, it can be an old boys club. They may sneer at you, laugh at you. You may have to stand your ground to get really insistent, but ultimately they will do it because it is their job to do it. They may not be happy about it. They may think you're just being a scaredy little girl. Let them think that. That's their problem, not yours. If you feel you need somebody there to protect you, have that.
Exactly. You know what? Better inconveniencing somebody than dead. And
exactly.
And in a lot of ways, that is one of the things that, as we are kind of empowering ourselves, is recognizing that one of the ways that has led to the end of life for a lot of women is the fear of inconveniencing. And then, unfortunately, the wrong types of people will take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Be inconvenient.
Yes. Be inconvenient, because it's not about them. It is about you. And that can be a hard thing, particularly for those of us who are people pleasers and we're for whatever way, shape, or form raised to be people pleasers, whether it's because our parents were people pleasers and that's what was modeled, or because they literally were like, the ways they raised us was basically they taught us to be. There's a million reasons why we become people pleasers. It doesn't matter how you got there. If that's how you are right now, it can be even harder. Dig deep. Find that part of you that knows you are worthy, that knows that you are allowed to have boundaries and feelings and to own those. And yes, like Abby said, if you need to find a therapist to work with who can help you find that and stand in that space, do that. Therapists are amazing people. Yes, some are better than others. Some are going to be a better fit for you than others. If the first 1 or 10 you work with doesn't vibe for you, keep looking. There's also a bazillion different therapy modalities out there. And it may be that one modality works better for you than another. I don't know if a bazillion is the right number. Abby would know more about all of them than I do, what she's in school for. But
a bazillion is about right. I took an entire class that was just on the different theories, and even then was like,
so high level.
Yeah, and it was still like skimming the surface. There are, people think there's only one type of talk therapy. Nope. People think that talk therapy is the only kind of therapy you can do. Yeah.
So not true.
There is a wellspring of different therapeutic modalities, and it really is just a matter
that works for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Abby, any final thoughts, advice, conclusions to the story? We did kind of leave out one piece, actually, in between the you found stuff out and you're going to be at this conference in Denver. We kind of left out the Gilmore Girls pice. Like you said how we made content about it, but there was also this other piece that I think we should probably share.
Yeah. So because, he's the internet personality who had built his platform a bit on Gilmore Girls stuff, last year, he helped lead a panel at a fan fest that was happening in Maine, and he was scheduled to do the same this year. And again, I will say that
for people who are not familiar with the show, the typical audience of Gilmore Girls is women and young girls.
Exactly. And it didn't, speculation, just my opinion. I don't think it is coincidence that he picked a show that a lot of women, especially women who've been through stuff and are in a very vulnerable place, either loved as they were growing up or still love. I don't think it's coincidence. He knew what his audience was. And I am going to assume the same thing happened where he kind of got ahead of things and was like, oh, I will voluntarily pull myself from this.
Because there was this moment in time where you and several other of your peoples, we'll call them, were writing letters to the organizers and doing that, which regardless of whether he pulled out first or it doesn't matter. The fact that you all took this collective stand and wrote to these people and said, hey, like, you don't want this guy in front of your peoples, and here's why. That is amazing too. And that for some people can even feel a little less scary because there's this anonymity, like you're sending a letter or an email and you don't have to like confront the person directly.
And in some ways, we get back to that phrase that I kind of asked the listeners to kind of keep in mind that, well, it's just my trauma talking. I had a lot of people reach out to me, which included those from that Gilmore Girls fandom. And they would say, you know, there was always something about him that put me on edge. But I figured, you know what, it was just my trauma talking. The sheer number
Do not believe if you are feeling a feeling, don't assume it's your trauma talking. Yes, you probably have trauma to work through. We all do as human beings. It's a traumatic life we live here on this planet. But don't assume that makes your feelings wrong.
Exactly. And as I have learned, that low rumble that is almost beyond words, that is not anxiety brain. That is not your trauma talking. And if it's your trauma talking, quote unquote, it is only because trauma has honed your ability to pick up on those subtle cues that this person is trouble, that your conscious mind has not picked up on yet, but the rest of you has. Good rule of thumb as I see it, and I always call it the low rumble versus the yippy voice. If you got yippy high-pitched voice giving a narrative at you 50 miles an hour, there's a good chance that's anxiety brain. But if you've got that low rumble that is kind of beyond words and just goes, oh no, this is trouble. Listen to that. Listen to that. And if there's any time where you are going, this is my trauma talking. I love using this analogy with my therapist, and somehow I came up on this on my own. So, you know, gold star sticker for me. But it's kind of like you have a carbon monoxide alarm that goes off. And maybe it used to go off a lot in the past, but you know what? It's better to check out. It is better to see what's happening, assess the danger, than go, oh, you know what? That thing's going off again.
It's always going off. Alarm. Yeah.
Yep. And then suddenly you fall asleep and you die of carbon monoxide poisoning. So
that would be terrible. We don't want that. Yeah.
Good Lord, no.
So I like how you kind of talked about like the different voices. For me, it's actually a very body experience, how I tell the difference between like intuition versus anxiety. And as somebody who loves the somatic part of therapy, I think you'll appreciate this, Abs. So I just kind of figured this out recently. If it's literally in my stomach area, in my gut, where most people say, listen to your gut. If it's my gut, it is anxiety 100% of the time. My gut is constantly going, this is wrong, everything's wrong. Oh my God, constantly freaking out. If I listen to that, I would be a quivering mess of anxiety constantly. Meds would not do anything if I listened to my gut. Like it's constantly. But if it's my heart that's talking, and I have to get quieter to hear that sometimes, but if it's my heart that's talking, and it's actually not even talking, it's a very physical sensation. If it feels constricted, if my heart feels constricted, if my chest feels constricted, that, whatever that is, that means that don't do that. That's a bad situation. Stay away from that. Not a good thing. It's a warning sign that I need to listen to. If it feels open and expansive and relaxed, move in that direction. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Yes. So for some people, my point with sharing that is some people may experience it as the voice. Some people may experience it in their body. Everybody has to kind of figure out how they experience those two differences, the anxiety versus this is actually valuable information, intuition type stuff. It's not going to be the same experience, but hearing ours of how we hear them and how we feel them and interpret them may help you to figure yours out.
Exactly. And that's the key there is everybody has a different language, and the nervous system will speak through our bodies and our brains and our gut and, every literal muscle fiber in a slightly different way. And it's just a matter of giving ourselves time to get to know that parts.
Exactly.
And get to know, learning to translate what is anxiety yippiness versus that intuition telling you what's up.
Yeah. Anything else that you feel is important to share for women who might be trying to get a little more empowered in their lives for any reason, whether it's an abusive relationship, which there's far too many of those, or some other reason?
I will leave you guys with a saying that I came up with actually in 2020 when I was leaving another bad situation. And the trauma bond was real, and it was really, really hard for me to maintain no contact, especially since he was kind of testing the boundaries to see if I would respond. I kept telling myself, you have to love yourself more than him right now. You need to love yourself more than this situation. You need to love yourself to the point that you know that you need to put the phone down. It doesn't matter how much you love him. Right now, you need to love yourself more. And for some reason, not for some reason, I know exactly the reason, but that statement right there, you need to love yourself more, is so huge.
That is huge.
And sometimes that can really tip the scales, especially if you are dealing with something where you really do love the other person. But you know what? It's not a good situation.
People are unlovable. We wouldn't be with them if they were.
Exactly. But we need to love ourselves more.
Yes, exactly. That's part of the issue, right? Is we have to learn how to love ourselves more.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we do that, and the more often we do that, the less likely it is we'll wind up with people like that in the future.
Exactly.
All right, my friend. Well, it was so great having you be on the show.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
For people who tuned in late, or maybe just need a quick reminder, you have been listening to Give a Fuck, presented by Spark Consciousness. And this has been a special bonus Changemakers episode where I was joined by Abby Rosmarin, my amazing, talented, gifted friend, who we love and adore. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on social media and on my website. To support the show, please sign up for Patreon or consider sponsoring an episode. Normally at this point, I would tell you, here's what we're talking about in our next episode. But this Changemakers one is a little bit more free-form, spontaneous, less planned. I have some ideas of who I'd like to invite, but I don't have the next guest planned yet, so you'll just have to be surprised. All of the links I mentioned are in the show notes. And Abby, if you have any links you would like me to share, I can drop those in there as well.
Most definitely.
For my listeners, because as I was recently reminded, and it was such a big duh moment for me, people listening to podcasts are not sitting at their computer waiting to be prompted to click on links, Sarah. Duh. So whatever you're doing, I don't expect you to pause and click on anything right now, but I am going to give you a little reminder word, a little magic phrase or something, if you will, to help you remember that if you loved this episode and you wanted to learn more about me or Abby, that you should do so. So today, the fun little word is blue. So if you see something blue, or you hear it in a song like that cool Cruel Summer song by Taylor Swift, whatever, you'll go, oh yeah, I was listening to that podcast and I gotta spark consciousness thing. Yeah, all right. I gotta go find that Give a Fuck podcast she puts out and grab that link. So blue is your word, peeps. And in the meantime, I'll see you on our next regularly scheduled episode. I forget what we're talking about, but I told you the last time. So whatever, check in for that. And as always, continue to expand your knowledge, feel the connections, and live with compassion.